Why aren't your prayers being answered? It's something we all struggle with, and we've been waiting patiently maybe, and we're still waiting to hear an answer, but there's silence there from God. We're hoping for a breakthrough. Maybe it's a reconciliation with somebody, maybe it's a healing physically in our own bodies, and it feels like nothing is happening. And I understand the feeling. It can be quite frustrating. We have our faith, and yet it's seemingly God is not moving on our behalf. Today I want to explore two foundational scriptural reasons why your prayers might be going unanswered at this time. And certainly my goal is not to criticize what you're doing, but to bring you encouragement in your day-to-day life around this area. And if you've been in that place of wrestling and wondering if God is truly listening, often the issue isn't our prayers being ignored, but that the understanding that prayer itself is something bigger than what we assume. And we know it's not a slot machine where we put a request in and get an answer. Now, I view it more as a partnership. So we're going to look at two ways. Maybe our perspective on prayer might need to shift a little bit, and how that shift can change everything in our life. And the first maybe misunderstanding that we can have about what it means to pray is sometimes we approach prayer like it's a shopping list for God that we hand to Him, and He's going to fulfill that list. But God, the Bible points us in a different direction. In 1 John 5 and verse 14, it tells us we have confidence if we ask according to His will. And this isn't about finding the secret formula, but about actually aligning our hearts with God's will for our own lives, but also God's grand plan for this world, and for us participating in the work that God is doing. And Jesus Himself models this in the Garden of Gethsemane when He prayed that prayer, "Not my will, but yours be done." And it wasn't a prayer of defeat that Jesus was praying. It was actually a prayer of ultimate trust and partnership. And it does change our focus from what do I want to God, what is your purpose, and how can I be a part of that? So it's a powerful little shift we can do right there. And the second thought I've got for us to consider is the why behind our prayers, and why are we asking? And the requests that we're asking from God might seem really good on the surface, but what is the underlying motive? The book of James says you ask and do not receive because you ask with wrong motives. And that's a tough one, isn't it? Prayer isn't just about receiving, it's about God's shaping us to become more like His Son, Jesus. For instance, if you prayed for influence, in all honesty, it could actually be about our own ego. And so we do have to examine our hearts right at that very point there. And I believe when we don't get an answer on that, it's not a rebuke from God, it's an invitation to have our hearts reorientated away from our own glory and towards His love and His restorative purposes over our lives. So out of all this, we are invited to align with His will and to examine our motives if we want to see our prayers punch through. And this can be, I believe, a lifelong practice, not a simple fix. The challenge for each of us is, instead of starting with that shopping list, simply ask to be drawn deeper into God's presence and into God's purposes. Hey, so good to talk with you today. Be blessed.